Hello tankers and tankettes, another guest spotlight today, and we're at the heavy end of the scale. We're at tier 10 and it's, the very heavy end of the scale. It's an E-100. It's a bit less well armoured than the mouse, but not that much less, and on the whole it's more mobile. Now this is a replay from Francois 85, and you'll immediately notice he's actually not using the 15cm gun, he's using the 12.8. And I don't know if that's just because he doesn't have it unlocked yet, or if it's, out of choice. But my guess is it's because he's still grinding it, because you'll notice he uses a lot of APCR ammunition in this one. And if you were playing it for fun, you wouldn't necessarily do that, I guess. That's just my guess anyway. I could be wrong, but I suspect it is just because he's grinding. Now we're on Prokhorovka and it is encounter mode, so taking the hill in the middle east sector of the map. You know the hill I mean, the hill, there is only one hill. Taking that hill is fairly important. Francois has the most armour and unsurprisingly he's top tier. Gee, I wonder why that is. So he's rolling towards the cap. He's going to use his armour to try and keep the cap clear of enemies, but obviously he needs his friendlies to keep the guys on the hill off him, because if he just sits there in the cap and the armor's good on this thing, but if he's getting sniped by half the enemy team from the hill, that's not gonna go well for him. Another thing to note is there is no artillery in this game, which when you're in a tank as big and heavy and relatively slow as the E-100 is, that's a definite blessing. That was a good snipey shot at that E-75, that's half the map away. And this gun it's not great, but 8.6. It's not horribly inaccurate, but it's no sniper by any means. It's going to try this T-54, but it bounces off the turret. It's alright for sniping a distance into the side of someone's armour, but trying to hit a weak spot at this distance is considerably tricky. Now they know he's there, they're demolishing his cover. It's all destructible cover in the cap zone. There's an enemy mouse that's got exactly the same idea. There's also an E-75 nearby-ish. And there's not that many tanks pushing down the road on the 2 line, but they haven't really encountered much resistance so far. So hopefully that will be enough of a force to overcome whatever's down there. We know there's a T-54E1 and an E-75. They've got no artillery support, which is the downside of this kind of a game. But it's looking like there is a lot of the enemy team around. Not just around the cap, but around the... oh, there's that mouse. Around the hill as well. In fact, a lot of them around the hill. Now their mouse is down. He took a bit of a battering. His health points didn't last that well. And the guys on the hill, you'll see there's 4 heavies. Plus he's platooned with 2 people. And his platoon mate, 13th Monkey, which is quite a nice username, is sitting at the back in the kind of usual tank destroyer spot, just giving some supporting fire on the hill. That's an unfortunate miss. And I want you to note that, well, you'll see the score screens at the end, but even though he's firing pretty exclusively APCR, he's not running a premium account as of making this game. He's actually still manages to make a profit, only just, but he does enough damage that it's possible. Now, and again, tries for the Indian Panzer. And note he hasn't actually taken any damage so far. This is a really great place to be in a tank like the E-100, when there's no artillery, and yes, they've got 2 tier 10 tank destroyers, both Death Stars actually. They've got the 183 and the Jagdpanzer E-100, but neither of them are on the hill. We know the Jagdpanzer E-100 is actually on the 2 line. His other platoon mate, which is Rollericus, is actually down there. And yeah, the 183 is he has been spotted, but he's way back. He's at J8, so he's going to pose no problems to Francois unless he comes right up close. So yeah, he's in a really comfortable place. There's enough friendly heavies engaging the attention of the guys on the hill that they're not all solely focused fire on him. And yes, he's taken some shots, but he hasn't actually taken any damage so far. And you'll notice he's relative to the hill, he's keeping his tank fairly angled, and he's using the destructible cover where he can. So like I said, yeah, this is actually a pretty comfortable place to be. For really any medium tank, medium? Wow, heavy. A well-armoured heavy tank. Something like the KV-5 or the KV-4 would be in a, comfortable in a fairly similar position as well. Obviously not with tier 10s around. Now he's been fairly defensive up to this point. He's still being defensive-ish. There's still a lot on the hill. And I think he could have been a bit more aggressive at this point. Obviously you don't want to ignore what's on the hill, and you don't want to show them your sides.
Let's go.
But there's an Indian Panzer and an E-75 there that he could take care of fairly easily. Damage count is pretty good though. I mean, he's trying lots of snipey shots, and a fair few of them have missed, which is expensive when you're shooting APCR. But he's still done over 2k damage so far. So he's not actually yet made up his own hit points, as it were, but he's getting there. He's not far off. Now he's a bit concerned about that FV215 British Death Star, but yeah, it's all the way back there still. I'm not really gonna. It was too far back, and bam, too far back to really cause him any concerns. So that's the E-75 down. Indian Panzer doesn't have any armour to speak of, so that's not going to be an issue. The guys on the hill are there's down to 2 heavies on that flank now, but if you look round the other side, they're well, unfortunately his platoon mate just died, but yeah, they're sweeping round. They've basically all the guys around here, and all Francois had to do was keep these guys bottled up. There's that Death Star looking in his direction slightly worryingly. But yeah, they all went and sat on the hill pretty much, most of their team. And even though there's no artillery, once you're kind of being shot at from all sides, I mean, it's 12-7. It's not like they haven't done some damage, but they're pretty decisively lost just from having tried that tactic, and I really hesitate to even call it a tactic. Now we're down to the Death Star. Maybe he just doesn't want to take any, lose any health, but there goes another shot. This guy's surrounded now. He was wanting someone to light the guy up, and somebody obligingly did. But this is, it's scary Death Star, but he's on his own. It's a bit like the KV-2, when it's reloading, it's completely helpless. And there we go. Pretty nice. I mean, yeah, a pretty nice game. It's wasn't amazing by any means, but that's about the most optimal way you can use an E-100 or any tank of that nature. He took over 7,500 potential damage without losing a single hit point. The only damage he did take was to a track module. He dished out 4,500. Pretty nice. He also actually got 1,500 spotting damage as well. So that was purely from him being close to those tanks that were around the cap and the guys on the flank of the hill shooting them. And yeah, it was... I think it less showcases what Francois was doing, and I think more showcases what the team was doing as a whole, and that it can go either way. If there's no one in the cap and everyone's on that flank of the hill there, then that can go badly wrong. But if you've got 1 or 2 strong units around the cap zone in this, on this map, in this mode, and you've got some good strong support on the flank of that hill, I'm assuming starting from the north here, of course, then yeah, it's quite easy to as long as you can outplay the enemy and outshoot them and outdo them in terms of dealing damage, you can basically prevail. And of course, there was hardly any enemies on the 1-2 line. And I find that a lot in encounter mode on this map. That is usually very weakly defended, and that can be the making or breaking of a match. And once those guys overcame the few defenders on that line, who were just sitting at the bottom there, they weren't being at all aggressive. They were just able to sweep round. But yeah, by that point it was kind of won anyway. That was just like the decisive clinching blow. Clinching blow? That's a phrase, right? No. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like, you can leave a comment, or you can even subscribe. I have a Facebook page where I post news and sometimes selected screen grabs from these replays. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.